A group of protesters are picketing outside the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. That's as arguments are being heard in the right to die case of the late Robin Stransham-Ford. Last year, the North Gauteng High Court ruled in favor of Stransham-Ford's application to allow a doctor to help him end his life. The court also said that the doctor who assists him would not face criminal sanction and would not lose his medical license. Stransham-Ford, who suffered terminal prostate cancer, died 2 hours before the order was granted. The Health Professions Council of South Africa, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Justice and the Director of Public Prosecutions have all appealed the ruling. They're arguing that the Constitution guarantees the right to life, not death. All right, for more on this story, we can go live now to our specialist reporter, Karen Morn, who's outside the Supreme Court of Appeal. Karen, of course, a morning and afternoon of arguments. Can you just take us through what's been said so far?
Well, essentially the big question that the judges initially put to the government applicants or appellants in this particular case was why the judge in this particular case, Judge Fabricius, did not overturn or recall his order, given that the applicant in the case had in fact passed away. Now, government believes that this case could potentially effectively legalize euthanasia, which is not legal in South Africa, and they're arguing very strongly that they believe it should be seen as a criminal offence, that assisted suicide is a crime and it should not be sanctioned. However, it's become clear from the questioning of the judges, particularly Judge Wallace, that there are real issues around the issue of right to life. This is really the nexus point on which government is basing its argument, that assisted suicide undermines the ultimate principle of right to life, which is at the heart of the Constitution. But the judge really questioning about the right to dignity and what it means for right to life when people are suffering, when they're in profound pain, when they don't want palliative care, in other words, to be permanently drugged with morphine until they die, and they wish to die in a dignified, quiet way with their family, with the assistance of a doctor. And that's really at the heart of this question of this case. The issue that I think this court is ultimately going to decide on is if doctors are ready and willing to assist people who want to be provided with lethal drugs so that they can take their own lives in an appropriate and measured way, then should those doctors be criminalized? Should they face culpable homicide or murder charges, or should they be seen as, or should they be given the legal space to assist people who are suffering and who want to die?
So how long are these arguments going to go on for? When do we expect to get a decision?
Well, the arguments will continue this afternoon. We know that Robin Stransham-Ford's estate had appointed an advocate to argue on his behalf that his family and he do not want, he would have not wanted this order to be overturned. We now have a number of civil rights groups and particularly applied legal centres arguing that, assisted suicide should not be criminalised and that there should be a sort of leeway given to professionals under limited circumstances. Those arguments are expected to wrap up at around 3:30, and then this court of 5 judges will reserve their ruling. We expect them to give a judgment in about a month to 2 months, Shahan.
And of course, Karen, some protesters outside. This is, of course, a very touchy subject for South Africans, regardless of whether it ends up in court and regardless of the ruling.
Well, that's the fascinating thing is just interactions with people on Twitter who have gone through the heartbreak of their loved ones dying, in many cases agonizing and undignified deaths, and have really dealt with the lived reality of death in those circumstances, saying that people should be given the right. But these protesters are outside court believe that euthanasia is fundamentally wrong, that it's murder, and that it can never be sanctioned. This is an issue very much akin to the questions around, for instance, abortion, where there's a great deal of unhappiness and controversy about people's right to choose. Ultimately, of course, the Constitutional Court enabling people to have legal abortions in South Africa, but still a very thorny issue. And that controversy is echoed in the kind of debate we see around euthanasia. Judge Fabricius asking a number of very pertinent and philosophical questions in his judgment last year, asking why human beings, could allow themselves to kill and be killed in ways as horrific as murder, car accidents, and all the variety of inhumanity that human beings are capable of. But there was such opposition to people who are suffering and willing and ready to die being allowed to control that decision, asking why we are told through our whole lives that we can control the circumstances of our lives, but we cannot control the circumstances of our death. This is really at the heart of our kind of common human experience. So it's one that goes beyond the realms of the law, and one that the law now has to try and process in a way that encompasses those huge philosophical questions in a cogent, legally sensitive way.
All right, thank you very much. Our specialist reporter Karen Morn at the Supreme Court of Appeals there in Bloemfontein.